Welcome back to another episode of the People of Packaging podcast. Before we get to this interview with Brandon and Ivan from Handsome, where we get to talk about holistic design and branding experiences and the role that packaging plays in that, I want to talk to you about the company where I work, Myers. We are helping brands bring these holistic packaging designs from companies like Handsome. We're helping them come to life, whether it's labels or POP displays or packaging, really complicated, weird things, all the way down to your normal run-of-the-mill stuff. We've got you. So if you got questions about it, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Just find me there, Adam Peak. You can also go to Myers.com. There's a little chat box there. There's some ways to fill out the contact information. But hit us up. Bring us your challenge. We have got you. All right. I got to sit down with Brandon and Ivan. I had a tremendous conversation with them about what they're doing at Handsome. So let's get to that interview right about now. All right. Well, we are back here with another episode of the People of Packaging podcast, the most exciting podcast on the internet, according to my mom, which is really great, guys. You should be proud. This is your first podcast, right?
It is.
It is, right? Yeah.
Man. Well, Joe Rogan will be next, no doubt about it. So I am joined here by Brandon and Ivan. They are not only two handsome dudes, but they also are with a company called Handsome, which is really cool. So why don't you guys just tell us real quickly? We'll start with you, Brandon. What do you do, and what do you do at Handsome, and how did you get there in a short period of time? Not like.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I'll try to be as succinct as possible.
Perfect.
So my name is Brandon Termini. I am one of the founders of Handsome. Been around for about 10 years. I lead our creative teams, designing basically creative experiences, whatever form they take on, whatever medium. You wanted me to get into the details of how Handsome started, or what do you think?
Sure. Yeah, this is there's no rules. This is a no holds bar podcast. We get crazy about on the packaging podcast.
It's the same kind of founder story. We looked at the industry. We all kind of had diverse backgrounds through design, and thought that we could do something better, more efficient, smaller, more focused teams, collaborating together closely with the clients to deliver great work. And kind of started with one project, as us, the founders, being that team, and then went from there. 10 years later, I think we're about 75 people, consisting of full-time employees and contractors. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, no doubt. And what was your background then, Brandon?
My background is in advertising. So I went to school for art direction specifically, kind of straddled that and copywriting. Focused my attention on Austin, worked at a short stint named multicultural agency called Latinworks, where I was writing commercials, and it was a very soul-sucking process, and knew that I wanted to do something different and be able to get back kind of the ownership that I experienced when I was making up crap in college. And so product design was becoming the hot thing. The iPhone hadn't been around for that long. Apps were becoming big, and kind of that was our entry point.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And Ivan, were you also part of the founding team, or what's your connection here?
No, not a founder, but I've been here for quite a while. Really great group of folks. I guess my short story is went to school for design through art school. So I had a lot of different interests. I kind of like hopped around, did some like internships at like screen printing shops and ad agencies, small boutique agencies doing like brand identity stuff. And managed some brands for like fashion and housewares. Did a little bit of, I did my tour in the tech industry for a little bit. And ultimately, I think I wanted something a little bit more with more variety, where I could touch a lot of different brands and problems to solve. So yeah, I kind of just like roundabout met some people at Handsome, and one thing led to another, and I've been here for I guess 3 years or so.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, at Handsome, I'm an associate creative director with I guess the emphasis on all things brand. So whether that's brand identity or positioning, or even just figuring out how to find a new way to like make the brand live and breathe in a new type of experience that a company hasn't done yet. So I work a lot with Brandon on setting up teams and just executing whatever we need to.
That's awesome. What area do you think is growing bigger in tech, Salt Lake City or Austin? Because I hear they're like neck and neck, it seems like, in terms of these like explosions of growth, right? It's going crazy down in Austin is what I just had.
Yeah,
I just had a friend over. Well, he's now a friend. He wasn't a friend beforehand. He'd lived in Salt Lake City for 3 days, and I was like, "Hey, you and your family should come over for dinner." And he was telling me all about just how much Austin has exploded.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah, I don't
so
really know too much about the Salt Lake scene. But if it's anything like the Austin scene, I'm sure it's wild. Yeah.
it's nuts here. It's like there's a new tech unicorn that pops up like every
Mm.
week here. It seems like it's pretty crazy. Well, that's awesome. And are you both like did you both go to UT Austin? Are you both like Texas natives? I mean, how did you end up in Austin? Was it by, by accident? You were just like on a like you were playing Oregon Trail and somebody died from dysentery, but you decided to stay in Austin.
Yeah,
Sort of.
Ivan, you go first.
Oh, no, I went to the Kansas City Art Institute. I went through their art program. Um, and I'm originally from the Dallas area. So after spending some time in the Midwest, I kind of wanted to make my way back down to Texas. And I don't know, Austin just kind of seemed like a natural fit.
Nice.
Yeah. And I was going to school in San Francisco, an art school there. And I had a friend that moved to Austin, went to visit him. It felt, it had some San Francisco vibes, but was warm and affordable 10 years ago, at least.
Yeah.
And, it's just bullheaded and said, okay, well, that's the only place I'm going to look for a job.
Awesome.
And it luckily worked out.
Cool deal. So I wanted to talk a little bit. So you guys are obviously a full service brand agency, right? But I know nothing, virtually nothing about 90% of the work that you probably do in terms of, these creative experiences, at least just kind of looking through your website. But you also, obviously, packaging for a brand is a big part of consumer experience. It's, from either D2C, unboxing kind of things, or through retail environments and shelf presence and aesthetics and visual. And is it consistent with all of the virtual digital stuff they're coming up with? So I kind of wanted to dig in a little bit on packaging and just sort of like walk me through. Maybe, I mean, you don't have to give away your secret sauce, obviously, but like what does that look like when you're developing a physical thing like a printed box or a printed bag that also is going to have to play in with product shots and websites and all sorts of other different assets that a brand would have. How difficult maybe is packaging in that entire strategy, um, when it comes to working with a brand?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, Handsome is a holistic experience design agency. That's what we call ourselves, at least. And so what that means is that we're looking at working with brands to evolve their overall ecosystem in whatever form it currently exists in, and whatever frontiers that we can help them work into that makes sense for strategy. And so it often doesn't start with, hey, we need to do our packaging work. Here's what else is going on. We typically come in for, we're going to be the brand agency, and we will start auditing points. For instance, for Snap Kitchen, it's a consumer product, it's food. And so a big touch point is the actual the food itself, the containers they sit in, the box, and that the entire experience around that. And so I think starting off with any package design project, we're kind of looking at things running in tandem. And so first, everything needs to be centered around strategy. And we like to always, though it's more complicated, we like to bubble everything up into kind of a single line that we can own from a strategy perspective. And so for the instance of Snap Kitchen, they're microwavable healthy meals. And so really looking at their customer base, looking at competitors, we really center around the idea of catering to people, young professionals that are living this busy lifestyle, and they really don't have time to eat. They want to eat healthy. They just want to know, they want to grab, eat it, and then move on with their day. And so from every design decision that we're making forward, and I'm not going to say like down to like the tape, but we try to tie everything back to the strategy there. And so I think often where we win in comparison to other more traditional packaging agencies is that we're not just thinking about the overall box design, the overall label design. We're thinking about the entire, what we call specifically for Snap Kitchen, the in-home experience. And so what does that customer journey look like from when they sign up online, from the first ad that they see to them building their box, getting excited seeing the box, photos of it online, and the actual food that they're going to get, to that confirmation email, to the email letting you know that the things have shipped, to the box arriving at the door, and what does it look like, opening it up, what's inside. We built an entire not just like a really intricate packaging system, which had a lot of complicated parts as far as the food needed to stay cool, was getting beat up as the packaging was moving around, but also like those moments of interest about like what kind of goodie can we put inside for today, and how do we make sure that that's personalized and not stagnant. And so the box experience on day one, it looks really different from the box experience when you're 3 months of ordering with Snap Kitchen. And how do we keep that fresh and keep them engaged in different ways?
That's cool. Yeah, because the idea of sort of healthy and fresh also can go into just the experience of receiving the packaging over and over and over again. And how do you keep that experience from getting stale, right? That's got to be a bit of a creative challenge. Ivan, being a kind of, it sounds like you have a background in sort of like graphics communication. And so did you find it at all, or have you found it at all difficult over the last 3 years? And we can stay on the Snap Kitchen thing, to express the brand's creativity, or to express the brand's strategy. What was it? Healthy meals for busy people, while having some very real limitations when it comes to structure and materials in packaging. How has that been kind of maybe different from other things that you've worked on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess an interesting aspect to the Snap account really is just like with that healthy meals for busy people. There was a little bit of like a lifestyle that they wanted to portray. And, you know, part of that is like being really simple and kind of bold with like color use, but not overly verbose, I guess. And so that kind of lends itself to creating some nice packaging, at least from like the outside of the box standpoint. And then I think, with the company that's willing to invest in that, I guess, that presence or that aesthetic, they're sometimes willing to, give a couple extra dollars to certain types of ink, or, we went back and forth for a long time on something that is kind of a tangent, but the adhesive that goes over these meals, right? So the package, I don't know, the entrees, right? They're in this tray that then has like a clear top on top of it.
Uh-huh.
And since these are like shipped to people, but they're also in the store, there's all this real information that has to be on the label. So we use the label to also secure the lid onto the bottom of the entree. And I don't know, just like through a lot of user testing, it's some of the adhesive would be like cheaper, but it was like way too sticky and it was like
Yeah.
really difficult, and you had to remove the stuff before you put it in the microwave. So I don't know, just like little things like that where we were really able to kind of collaborate with the right people at Snap Kitchen to, maybe save a couple dollars here and there to really have that nicer matte paper that in some ways created a more elegant experience where, let's embrace like craft colored boxes for our exterior packaging when we're shipping it to people, so that we can then invest in some more interactive elements like shipping people customized calendars, or a custom spork or something like that. So I guess, yeah, it's like sort of a roundabout way of just saying, like, I think it was interesting working with Snap Kitchen to kind of find ways to push and pull there and stay within the budget for them, but still make something that was simple and effective for the consumer.
How do I get a custom spork? That's it's the real question of the day. That sounds incredible.
Brandon, you want to take that one?
We could talk. We can connect offline. It's fine. It's fine. How much did you have to lean on, not just in this, again, in this exact specific instance with Snap Kitchen, how much did you have to lean on the expertise of maybe outside like packaging engineers or the vendors who are working with Snap Kitchen on things like materials, food safety audits? You mentioned microwaves. So if you got a bag, are the, like, something that I didn't realize until I actually got into working with flexible packaging was, in some cases, or no, I'm sorry, this was on shrink sleeves. The black ink that is used in some shrink sleeve manufacturing can spark in a microwave. I was like, oh gosh, I had no idea. So, and I was working for a manufacturer, and I was like, wow, I would never have even thought to ask that question, right? So how much did you have to lean on, packaging professionals, either at vendors or outside third parties, when it came to creating the entire experience that you wanted to create?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
Either one can take it.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was gonna say we definitely had to. They had previous relationships, and we also made recommendations, and that was probably, often it's the most tedious process about working with outside vendors, negotiating pricing. Us, from coming from a fresh perspective of caring about quality and design, helping guide Snap Kitchen stakeholders to say, hey, it's worth the extra money to go with this different vendor or use this type of material. And that is a very soul-sucking process. It's not the fun part about design.
Right.
And I'll say to that, what we purposely did is we start with blue sky ideas and we take them all the way to prototype before we get involved with any of that. And then what that does, it allows us to give the ultimate, if we had all the money in the world, here it is. And the client can see that, and then we can bring it back to reality versus already starting with all of these limitations. You can't do this. It sucks the creativity out of the design process. And so, yeah, we were able to, in the beginning, we were able to design out the ideal flow, the entire customer journey, look at all the different touch points in the in-home experience, ideate around what they're going to get on the intro, on the first package versus the 20th. We came up with different partnership ideas, so on and so forth. And then we kind of presented that all in a deck along with an actual physical prototype, and we walked the client through, opening up the box and the experience. And then we said, okay, now let's figure out what we can do. And we're good at that as well. And we were it wasn't like it was a new product, and so they had a box that was already shipping, and so we had to not only figure out what is realistic, but also what parts of this system can we get out in a month versus a year, and really help them navigate cost implications in that timeline for them to get as close as possible to the kind of ideal vision.
Got it.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is cool is we have a pretty the group of folks at Handsome have like really diverse backgrounds, right? So one of our brand designers is a really talented industrial designer by trade of school and spent a long time doing a lot of that. And so it was a really cool process where we were able to come up with some unique ideas, right? Like something that we hadn't really seen out there, which is like, very simple. It's just like a cardboard insert into the box to help get the food out of the box when you're unboxing it, right? Like it
Right.
sounds so simple, but if you've ever had one of these boxes delivered by any, insert any sort of meal delivery service, it's really hard to like stick your hands in there and like not cut your fingers and stuff like that. And so being able to like come up with those ideas in the prototype and actually build them out physically, test that stuff just amongst our team, and kind of say like, here, out of all of our experience, here's sort of like what we know is out there. We may not know like the technical limitations or the food safe area, but we can take these ideas that are working, and we can make a video of it and sort of have the client buy in on that. And then with their whole expertise side, which, there's a ton of people that work there that their whole thing is just like working on nutrition or making sure that all of the materials in the kitchen are food safe. And so being able to just kind of say like, here's what it should be, like, how can you guys help us realize this? I don't know, it was a cool collaboration for sure. But we, like Brandon said, we definitely leaned very heavily on the know of those folks, but tried to push them into some space that was maybe a little uncomfortable for them.
Sure.
Or
Well, yeah.
unfamiliar.
I mean, innovation doesn't happen without pushing out of comfort zones. I mean, that's by necessity that has to happen. And as somebody in the packaging industry, I have been multiple times on the other end of that, where it's like, why is everybody saying why we can't do something? Why don't we figure out what can we do to reach the same goal, right? So it may not look the exact same or function the exact same, but is it 99% there? Is it 98% there? The answer doesn't have to be, 0 or 100%, right? Like let's kind of come together, and I totally agree. Like those brainstorming sessions that you were talking about, Brandon, of sometimes having the realism set in too early can limit the ideation process. And I think that at least in the packaging industry, this is an area of growth, I think, for a lot of companies. Is a lot of packaging manufacturers are really quick to say no instead of saying, oh, that's an interesting point. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. Let's explore this together, like, and maybe it's going to take 6 months to figure out. Maybe it's not something that we have today, but can we go figure this out together? I think we're getting better at that. At least I hope we're getting better at that.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot where having in-house physical prototyping as a capability
Right.
really helps, because you have people that they're salespeople, and that this is what we can do on the list, this is what we can't do. But if you can get in front of somebody and say, here it is, it's real, it's a lot easier for everyone to wrap their head around it and figure out how to make
Yeah.
it a reality.
What's been one of the biggest packaging challenges that you wish? I typically say this to the end of the conversation. We'll ask it right now. So, with this particular with Snap Kitchen, right? Snap Kitchen. Sorry, with Snap Kitchen, if you could be like, man, if we could have just like waved a wand and fixed this instantly, it would have saved us hours and hours and hours of tedious work and heartbreak. What one or a couple things do you think that might have been?
I'm trying to censor myself from some things I want to
Trust me. I know all of the. My background, I got into packaging. I was doing a lot of like procurement and buying, and I can tell you all the problems with packaging salespeople if you really want me to go down that rabbit hole of despair. But yeah, I mean, it's the industry in and of itself is huge, right? It's $1 trillion global industry. It's in any given room. I've said this before in other podcasts. If you look around your room, what you realize is every single thing in that room required packaging to get there.
right.
And that's a pretty crazy thought to think about. The drywall needs packaging. The steel beams needed packaging. The furniture needed packaging. And all of that packaging that was needed to get the drywall needed packaging to get to the place to be turned into packaging. So it's a stupid big industry that doesn't get a whole lot of attention. But it also has a lot of stupid problems. So
Yeah, I think I mean we we're working with them to redesign their brand, to redesign, redevelop the actual .com experience, the checkout flows, and everything was happening on the same track. Goal obviously for any client is ROI, and so we had an idea of how we're going to increase sales through to opening up. They were only Austin based. They were more reliant on physical stores, and we were really opening up this direct to consumer model. And I think I wish that we could have seen the success from that a little bit earlier on, because I think that would have helped the client not be so hesitant about blowing this experience out. I think that when we got into the actual production timelines, we still hadn't launched the product, and so we had to take a more conservative approach to how complex or the packaging was. And I wish that we'd had those results sooner, so there was more excitement and more eagerness to just go crazy.
Yeah, and I think on a related note, it was sort of happening. A lot of this was happening in the height of the pandemic, so there was a lot of unknown. But a lot of the design challenges really came with designing a system that was flexible enough to work with places like Whole Foods and meet their requirements from a content perspective, which I'm sure is like a lot of really fine print and like weird stuff, like you can't say the word healthy, or but then still create a non-cluttered experience for when we directly ship it to a customer, right? or when they go into a Snap Kitchen, brick and mortar, right? Like those are three very different things. And we were trying to design for all of them at the same time, which posed some interesting challenges. And I think we came up with some cool solutions, but it definitely was like it was a big, a big headache, that I think, if we were to go back today, knowing what we know now, I think we kind of separate those out a little bit more and have, more ammunition to say like, this is why this is why we have two different labels or that kind of thing. So
Got it. Yeah, let's talk about labels here for a second, because you guys, it looks like, just kind of looking on the site, they've got all sorts of different products. But before the call, we were talking about one of my favorite topics, which is there is a very positive move in packaging towards clear food packaging. You see it now in like these vacuum skin trays where the food is a lot fresher. It's, you can see it. A lot of it happened from actually baby food, where a company that was using a white pouch, like those squeezy pouches, there was contaminant inside of it. You couldn't see it, and it got fed to a child, which made the child sick. So a lot of these pouches started coming into clear. You see it now in these pressed juices and things like that. So as you are in the middle of all of this stuff, right? You're designing all of these things. You're creating this whole new experience. You're Ivan, like you talked about, you're kind of dual pathing all of this. And then to get hit with these weird challenges that I'm sure kind of came out of left field, like a clear juice bottle with a clear label. Maybe talk to me about that, like where a rendering is probably going to look a lot different than the actual physical product, and how do you keep that brand consistent when it comes to the digital and the physical experience with packaging and online?
yeah, I think Brandon was definitely a lot closer to the juice portion of this. So I'm sure he's got some stuff,
It's a
but
tough
I
one, man.
know, I mean, it was definitely a lot of time looking at Pantone swatches against like juice colors and saying like, I think this is the closest, but like being okay with like a kind of like a range, right? Like not every green juice is going to be the exact same green, even though the ingredients are the same. And that was kind of, I mean, I'll kind of like Brandon take it, but that's sort of how we went with that, where it was like we decided to try to embrace the look of a clear label, without the unsightly scene of like a settled juice or a separated juice.
Yeah, so I think they had some juice labels on the shelf, and they had kind of gone through some of the pain points. I think everyone wants to show off the product, and I think they had started with clear labels, and then ended up having solid labels because of the juice, cold pressed juice settling, which I'm sure that you had the same experience with.
Yeah.
Cold liquids. And it was kind of this conversation of, is that okay? Like, is the juice settling okay? And I think we were in the camp of, yeah, it is okay. I mean, they're gonna the first thing you do with the juice, and if we can also like, can we through some ideas around about making that okay, this is what a juice looks like, that's real, and shake it and making that part of the experience, and maybe adding that to the label in some sort of way. There was a lot of debate there, and I think ultimately what we decided is we created a system where there were a combination of solid labels and clear labels, depending on because they had not only juices, but they had smoothies, and some juices like were collagen juices. You weren't really seeing that separation, and so it kind of became a case by case basis.
Got it. So the ones where the juice would settle, would you kind of decide, and it would look kind of pretty distinct, you would decide on like a more solid label, and then
Right.
the ones where there wasn't as much separation, you could stick with a clear label? Is that sort of the way it rolled out?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess that would
And
solve my question was, looking at kind of full scale experiences, if, how do you represent something that is going to look differently depending on, if I get the juice and I'm sitting there at the store, let's say, and I shake it up just to see, then I set it back down. Then somebody comes up after me and they see a fully shaken juice next to one that's not shaken. And, like there's so many things about the brain experience that you can't really control. So I was just kind of curious how you accommodate for that. But it sounds like you found a pretty cool solution, which was just have a slightly different variation of the label depending on the separation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the radical idea, like the cool idea, would be like the education moment of like, you want healthy food, like here's what healthy food looks like, and sort of that education moment that I'm sure a lot of people have. I had where it was like, wait, why is this peanut butter like separated right now?
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like, oh well, duh, because as a kid you never had like natural peanut butter, you just had like some weird spread. And being okay with that separation and being like, this isn't rotten peanut butters. I just got to mix it up real quick. It's no big deal. If Snap, could take that approach and be like, we're sort of educating you on healthy food and what that looks like, I think that would be a really cool moment. But yeah, I think ultimately we were able to come up with something that ticked the boxes for everyone.
Got it.
I think
So go ahead.
I was going to say, we were able to win in some different areas there. I mean, they had, for instance, we were able to convince them about renaming the product line. They had really, I don't know if creative's the right word. They had very interesting names that weren't necessarily descriptive. But one of the brand values that we came up with is just being clear. And letting the food speak for itself. And so, and I think, this isn't new to the juice category. I think we're seeing this a lot where it's just, what is this made out of? And so instead of giving it a complicated name, which then has to compete with the brand ownership of Snap, calling it what it is from an ingredient standpoint, listing the ingredients out clearly on the label itself. And that kind of very helped inform the new packaging design.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So my last question, as you've kind of been talking, you're talking about these holistic experiences. I get asked a lot about we'll call it connected or interactive packaging. So ways to pull an experience that is, a tangible product experience, and pull that into use that real estate to pull people back into the digital world, either via their phone, whether it's augmented reality or a QR code, or triggering reorders, or how do I recycle this, what are my sustainability things. Like, so much of our lives now are both, right? Like there's not many people who are strictly analog anymore, especially in the US. There's most of us are living in two different, I mean, we're doing an interview right now over Zoom. You're in Austin, Texas, I'm in Salt Lake City. So how have you as an agency, whether it's with Snap Kitchen or not with Snap Kitchen, worked to bridge that digital analog gap to create a holistic experience for your customer's customer?
Yeah, I think it's just table stakes at this point. We're the agency that's typically working across the digital and physical space, and so the brand everything needs to loop back to one another. You can't have a dead end, and so it's things like you get the package, simple ideas like how do you take care of menu fatigue? People are getting the same food items over and over again, and so how do you make it simple for them to get from looking at a product and going, oh, I've already had the turkey meatballs 10 times, I'm sick of Snap Kitchen, to making that to an opportunity. So seeing something physical, for instance, we had ideas around sending sample packaging, and so like think about like little mini meals, and so you get like a little 6-pack tray of new menu items. You're able to interact to vote on one that's going to
Got
make
it. Almost like a flight of whiskey or something like that, but with meals.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Cool. So the answer is not, okay, go to www.snapkitchen.com and go to your account. It's take a picture of this and it'll link you directly to there, where you can get some quick.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we were talking about like things like sustainability. Like that's obviously a big deal. It was a big problem for Snap Kitchen because they were packing so many meals in Texas, and you have to just have this giant insulated box. The cardboard that Ivan was talking about, the pulling out trays, that was because they had to have cardboard in there to separate the multiple ice packs for things not to get wet. And so we turned that into an opportunity. But they were still like, they were getting these boxes, and there was a lot of complaints about, why is there 6 ice packs in here that look like they're full of chemicals.
Right.
I feel so wasteful throwing away all the stuff. And so there was no education on what these materials are made out of, that they were all recyclable. The areas where the things weren't recyclable, we found new products. And so basically, we added instructions to, there was an insert that linked to digital story about what we're trying to do to reduce carbon footprint, how much, how you can easily dispose recyclable packaging.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked on the ice packs. There was a lot of research that went into that, and kind of collaboration. I think make some pretty cool looking ice packs. There's like graphics printed on them and the education points that Brandon's talking about. But I remember, and this was why I was like so caught up on it, was like way back in the day, I remember ordering like a Blue Apron or something like that. And it came in this giant box, and like the insulation was like basically like cotton jean material, like wrapped in like aluminum foil looking stuff, and then like layers of foam. And people that live in busy cities, like, you're paying for your trash can, right? And if you're living alone, it's like you don't need a 32-gallon trash can. Like, you probably have a small one you set out on the curb. And I always remember thinking, just like, wow, this one package like filled up my trash can. So like, I got to be real chill on the trash this week. And so that was like a big thing for me, where it was like, oh, cool. Like, this is like non-toxic stuff that you can cut this ice pack, you drain it out, and like the waste is very, very minimal in comparison to other experiences. And yeah, I don't know, any opportunities like that are nice and fun. Being able to throw graphics on it is an extra added thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what a way to kind of tie it up. Like, you're not only dealing with like, how do we work on the shopping cart to create the experience a lot easier, but also how do we help a consumer dispose of an ice pack when they get it? All of it, right? From the minute somebody engages online to the minute they get their stuff, is all part of that holistic experience. I try to help because not a lot of people realize that the packaging industry is huge. And so, as somebody who is just like I have friends who are not in the packaging industry, and I try to tell everybody, like, you are a packaging buyer. Like, when somebody orders something from Snap Kitchen, they have acquired the packaging as well. And so a brand who's not thinking through end of life, like, how do we help that experience even be something that's easy and clear, not just like we were talking about the juice labels, right? Like, the ingredients should be clear, but it should also be equally as clear what the consumer is supposed to do with the packaging when they're done with it. And it's cool to hear that you even thought all the way through to the experience on the ice pack, the experience of the label on the juice bottle. Like, for us in the packaging industry, there's probably people who are like, yes, thank you. Except for, you said corrugate, or you said cardboard, and I'm guessing it's corrugated. And there are people who like that'll be their thing, like the grammar people who are like good versus well. There are literally people who will be like, no, it's not called cardboard, it's called corrugated. Just so you know, in case you ever meet one at a party. That'll be the thing. Well, this has been great, guys. So first of all, how do people get in touch with Handsome or with you individually? What are some ways that people can reach out if they got any further questions?
I,
Brandon,
I,
you get to go
I would
first.
say normal channels for Handsome. I mean, our website, obviously we're up on Instagram, and Twitter. People are more than welcome to reach out to me directly.
Sound like LinkedIn or something?
Yeah, like I hate to be that person, but yeah, like LinkedIn, it's
The easiest right
it's
now,
a
right?
great way. Yeah, it's like
Brandon at Handsome.is. That's
the electronic mails now.
Yeah.
Got it. What's that?
Let me get my phone number. Hold on.
Do you have a pager?
Yes.
I wish.
Yes, but it's not for this work.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah.
No.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I do.
Classless joke at the end of the podcast, just to put that.
That was amazing. Yeah. I remember being in high school and I did not have a pager and I was really mad. So I had to go find a payphone, but I didn't want to pay for the call. So I would call my parents and when it's time to go from like practice and they'd be like, please say your name. And I'd be like, it's Adam, pick me up. And then they'd be like, I'm sorry, they won't take your call. I'd click. I'm like, I can't believe this.
Yeah. Hacking the system.
I did. You gotta work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon and Ivan,
great.
this has been awesome. Such cool insights. I'm hoping that that people can reach out. We love having people on who are, like we talk to a lot of like packaging engineers and sustainable packaging consultants and people who work for packaging companies. And so it's just so cool to get other perspectives on where packaging fits. And it was cool to have kind of this case study with Snap Kitchen. Anyway, I appreciate you both being on. Everyone go check out Handsome.is. And if you're feeling especially kind, you can like or subscribe to the People of Packaging podcast while we aim for world domination. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, that is it for another episode of the People of Packaging podcast. Thanks for listening. It would mean so much to us if you would like and share and subscribe to this podcast. We want as many people to know about the incredible people that we have in the packaging industry because we believe that packaging is awesome. Thanks again.